Recording in progress.
Hey, welcome everybody to the March 25th Catholic Regional District Board meeting. I acknowledge that we're holding the meeting on the traditional territory of the Tla'amin Nation. We have an agenda in front of us. As far as I know, there are no changes to that agenda. So somebody like to move adoption of the agenda? Director McCormick, Southcott. Any discussion? None. All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Adoption of the minutes of the February 25th, 2026 board meeting. Any errors or omissions? Seeing no hands. Somebody like to move adoption of the minutes from Southcott, seconded by Director Lennox. Thank you. All in favor? Carries unanimously. No delegations. Blah, blah, blah. We'll skip down to chair's report. On March 4th, I was, in fact, I think everybody seated here except for our CAO. We're at the special screening of Namesake. So it took a look at the importance of local Indigenous place names and the name change conflict that's happening here in Powell River. I was extremely impressed with the film, both for the story, the kind of the explanations of the importance of names, and strictly the quality of the filmmaking. I really encourage everyone to see it. I'd like to thank the Tla'amin Nation for having a special screening for us, because I understand the two screenings they had during the CATHAT International Film Festival were both packed, sold out. It would have been hard to get in there. And I believe the nation's accepting requests for special screenings. They want as many people to see it as possible. And I heard now that it's also being screened at Toronto's Hot Dogs Festival. So it's a great opportunity for it to reach a wider audience. On March 9th, we had library trustees. Nothing particularly out of the ordinary happening there, but we are continuing to create a more accessible space for the public. Right now, the focus is on the bathrooms, and the largest expense is the doors, one of which will be power controlled. Other items included in the project: grab bars, making pathways and transfer space available, or relocating trash cans, paper towel dispensers, and other items which are currently in the way. We also approved a budget for procuring equipment necessary for the library to hold hybrid meetings, which will allow attendance to those who can't get to the library for the meetings, and or if they have physical restrictions on scheduling challenges. On March 16th, participated in a meeting with a number of people who are interested or involved in the Lund Waterworks District. Hopefully some questions were answered and a clear path forward was determined. And then on the 17th and 18th, there was a social planning service review meeting and a sub-regional recreation service review meeting. That's all I've got for this month. So let's, Director Ellie, are you ready to go? Or
I just kind of got back from vacation. I don't know if I was vacation yet. As you mentioned, I did attend the namesake screening that we were all invited to, and I do enjoy the film, and it's a local film done very well by local people. People can look through that if they want to. I don't have a ton of other things to put in my report right now, just because of this return from vacation. I went to Calgary, and that was a lovely trip with my kids. Thanks.
Okay, I enjoyed the trip. It's good to get out of town once in a while. Director Lennox.
All right, I'll try to be as brief as possible. It's been a very busy month here. So yeah, namesake was very interesting. Again, so much in common with our neighbors and in our history there. So I enjoyed watching that. Had a great discussion the next day with our staff, RCMP staff sergeant and another officer, Savory Island committee member, and some other folks around, parking issues on Savory. And really, to keep it simple, enforcement needs partners. So that was a great message from the police about that they can only do so much. And really, we mentioned earlier in some of our discussions, guilt can play a factor because people know whose vehicles are blocking safe access routes and stuff. So it was a very honest and frank discussion. That being said, the RCMP did commit to coming on island and doing their jobs. So residents should be very clear that if they're uninsured or parked unsafely, that there will be efforts to follow up. And really, it's upon the community to communicate with each other to get those vehicles out of the way. So I won't belabor that, but it seems like a small thing, but it's a big thing on safety. So I wanted to bring that up and thank everybody for their time. So there's going to be a lot more cooperation there. Next week, we went to the Local Government Leadership Academy. Director Gisborne and he may have some comments, I'm sure. To keep it brief, we went through electoral area advocacy and awareness, and that's kind of around how we communicate and use media as directors. I don't do that well, and I really don't engage on social media, so I learned a lot of things about how I may do that. And so my constituents can let me know if they don't think I'm doing a good job. I'm sure they will. But again, we all have to consider this day and age where we are and using that tool. So I thought it was interesting. Social media, trust and representation in electoral areas, very much related to the same thing. About where we are in society with trust and information and verifying and, and how we're communicating there. Code of conduct policy developments around our governance and structure, service disputes and service area reviews. Again, we're in amongst some of those ourselves, so it was very Director Gisborne was very engaged and I as well, and a lot of discussions because there's a lot of recommendations in other areas that are doing these regularly. So that was interesting. And then, sorry, I got it backwards. That was day 2. The first day was very interesting around, and this is what EA directors asked for last year, is Heritage Conservation Act modernization. Okay, so we had a report from the BC ministry involved, which was, to be honest, this is what's really front and center for a lot of people now. So they were considering how to permit faster for people who are engaged in the Heritage Act permitting. They removed some of the requirements that duplicate efforts and cost time. Considering records of engagement with First Nations and others, and how to make sure that we're recording that, and that's an important part of the process. The heritage management zones that they want to establish and enhance the ones that they already have, and how to do that again, logically and efficiently. And then really they made a commitment that First Nations would not be part of compliance and enforcement, that was not something that they were prepared to, that was one of the amendments that they wanted to make clear. So again, everybody's talking because people are talking in our communities. We should be asking these questions if we have them. And then the BC government is trying to give us the answers. So they're trying to move. They had hoped to do this more recently, but they're working on it. Body-worn cameras, we've heard from our local police detachment that they've received that and some training. We went through the whole thing, so we know how to use them now, so be careful. But so it was very interesting. And then again, back to First Nations, Emergency and Disaster Management Act and First Nations consultation. So I learned on top of the provincial emergency program and national programs around emergency management, we are also have spent considerable time, effort, and money around First Nations consultation to the tune of $25 million in 2025 to hire 35 coordinators around the province for First Nations to engage with emergency management. And the feds have invested like $259 million since 2020 in the same efforts. Again, provincial emergency program is involved as well. So as we see budgets shrink, I think we'll see some of that. And I appreciate your time here, Chair. So Chief Wayne Sparrow addressed Chief Wayne Sparrow from the Musqueam Nation addressed the delegation. I think it was day 3. Unannounced, I didn't know he was coming, but obviously the Musqueam decision has been very front and center in the leadership forum. This is, he took the chance to just quickly get up in front of all of the representatives to clear I'm just reading from my own notes, so I hope we get it right, clear the narrative. There is no treaty. They're using relationship agreements. They've met with the other 2 chiefs from the other nations that are involved. I think they're going to be issuing a statement or have that they're quote unquote not coming for private land, unquote. It's about stewardship of land agreement with BC, not binding, and they're working with the feds, BC, and they want to be friends working together. So, I'm just paraphrasing, and I hope I got that right. But again, very interesting for their leadership to take that opportunity in front of us to come and say that in person. Wow. On day two, actually, I was getting calls from local community organizations about what? DRIPA and the Heritage Act. So after I learned something, I then met with them virtually, and they appreciated it. And it actually, sorry, Director, you. Yeah, just don't hide. Thank you. Sorry, everybody. Sorry, folks, I just wanna, it's important here, so it was good. It was an example of giving people firsthand knowledge, hot off the press, and actually the conversation went well, and I think people came away from that. I met with Randine, Neal on Monday, and, or sorry, I'll touch on that in a minute. Lund Water District, we met March 16th. Thanks, Chair, for attending, and thank you, Director Gisborne, and staff. Amazing job by staff to put together a great presentation with answers to a lot of the community members' questions. I appreciate that immensely. I won't go into the details. We're still all working together on that, and there's even latest efforts there. We did get a notification during the meeting by our MLA, who was in her mobile office in her car, that we were successful in phase one. Oh, sorry, Chair, we're not, oh, sorry. Disregard my comments there. I apologize. I'm not supposed to announce things.
We were successful in getting the internet connected to the meeting.
Yes, thank you. So that was a great meeting. Service reviews, we had a good social planning service review. Let's say almost done here. And we had a Savory Island OCP meeting as well that was quite good. And again, some of these topics that I've discussed were hot, front and center, and we were able to discuss them again with current information. I think that process is going well, and we do have, we're getting toward the end of having, meeting the community here in the spring. So I'm looking forward to that and reviewing the final document and recommendations. Bear with me. There's a ton here. Yes, and then finally, again, our MLA is out there doing some good work for us. She's has a cabinet position and still finds the time to break off and call me. And we had a quick follow-up meeting to the Lund Water meeting. And just, I won't get into the details, but again, her kind of focus, trying to understand the issue, not just for Lund, but other improvement districts, and working with communities, trying to find grant opportunities, trying to ask her staff to follow up. I just wanted to say thank you, and I told her the same, and she'll continue to be involved. Thanks.
Great.
I probably missed some stuff too.
Probably we had a busy month out on area and on Savory especially.
No.
So you spoke about the Heritage Conservation
Yes.
Act that happened during your session. It's my understanding that these are all proposed changes
Yes.
that have not been enacted
That's right.
yet, and so that was part of their consultation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Director Gisborne, what do you got for us?
Oh, I'll try and keep it brief, but it's busy. Hopefully we can get out of here before dark. So on the 7th, I attended the festival grand concert. Joyce Carlson came to me and said, we need a regional district rep. Our chair is not able to attend. And I said, I don't usually go to this. And she goes, Mark, you're coming. And I went, yes, ma'am. So my wife went, why are you going? And I go, well, Joyce Carlson told me to. And she goes, okay, yeah, you have to go then. So that was actually really quite an experience. Some very talented young people in our community. As the Director Lennox pointed out, on March 10th and the 11th, I attended the Electoral Area Directors Forum. I believe at the very beginning, when Geraldine Kirk kind of gave her introduction, there was a little bit of booing, not at Geraldine Kirk, but it wasn't me. That there was, okay, the provincial representatives weren't able to come, like the minister wasn't able to come and address us, and the legislative reform initiative, apparently the province is just saying, yeah, we're not doing any of that stuff right now. So that's where some folks started booing because, I can understand the province is broke, and anything that's not a burning issue, they seem to be putting onto the back burner. That's where we then went into the Heritage Conservation Act modernization. Not a surprise, as was Director Lennox, they've kind of had a delay in their proposed implementation and update. They're looking to have some new changes to the act coming up, I believe, this fall. And just kind of backing things up a bit, I remember last year sometime the province said, hey, you know, we want to give a new computer system, a new legislation, and we're going to speed up the permitting process, and we're not hiring any additional staff. And I personally thought that was quite funny, because you know, you throw a bunch of new tools at your staff and you don't give them any extra, you know, folks to help deal with it. That's how you end up with those situations. Yeah, body worn cameras, emergency and disaster management was a good session. Then going on to the next day, we had the, you know, online communications and media. There was the code of conduct policy development, which had some really good feedback from a number of directors in the room. There was one fellow that got up and was like, hey, you know, this is what we have to do, but yet we watch the provincial MLAs get up and, you know, behave terribly, and they can't even be held personally liable for the things that they say in the legislature, but yet we can. And he was essentially saying like, yeah, we'd love to have, you know, code of conduct, you know, updates, you know, which is what the province wants to give to us. He says, but we'd really like it if the MLAs would actually, you know, show some leadership and kind of police themselves, which I thought was kind of amusing. Then there was the section related to service disputes and service reviews, which, as we're aware, we're doing 3 here. It was a good session, and what was interesting was they said that since June of 2024, there was only 7 requests for service reviews in the entire province of BC. So I'm responsible for 3 of those. And it was also clarified that of the 7 requests, not all of them were actually granted. So all 3 of the ones that I triggered were granted. I then later found out that the reason why they said June of 2024 was it moved departments in the ministry. So it's apparently now that it landed in the new department, that's why it only goes back to June. So it was a really good conversation from folks around the province and around the room about, you know, some past service reviews. And really the whole point is to try and resolve disputes and try and, you know, find a new way forward. And then that ended on Wednesday, which was the 11th. And then it started out with the local government leadership forum. And so that was day 2, but technically day 1, where Chief Wayne Sparrow opened up our ceremony, and very humanizing, because he was like, I'd love to stay, but I got to go pick up dog food, otherwise I'll sleep on the couch. And, and it's just, I always like those things where we, you know, everyone's just a person at the end of the day. And I won't get too much into the local government leadership academy. It was, you know, fantastic sessions back to back to back. And it's always tough with the local government leadership academy when it's the end of a term, because usually it's at the beginning that front loaded, and then near the end it's kind of like what was the last session called, finishing strong or something like that. Then I got to come home and the entire family was sick. For some reason I didn't get sick. And then on the 16th of March, I attended that meeting in relation to Lund Water. I won't say anything in case it's not allowed to be said. Then on the 17th, we had our social planning service review meeting, and it was a good session. However, unfortunately, we weren't able to actually come to an agreement on kind of the way forward. So it looks like I'll most likely be submitting an application for service withdrawal under 367 of the Local Government Act. Then on the 18th, we had our sub-regional recreation contribution service, it's a mouthful, service review. And that one went quite well. We had unanimous consent, I believe, on all the issues. The big one that was kind of burning was funding will be done through an actual agreement rather than just kind of a one-off thing. And that'll be coming up in an upcoming meeting. And so I'd like to thank everyone for the work done there. We came to some consensus on a number of issues, but we'll see that in an upcoming meeting. And then let's see, what else do I have? No, I'll just wrap it up with one final thing. I just got an email probably about an hour ago at Assumption School. They had 2 break-ins on March 20th and 21st. So my kid, who is in the preschool, they are delaying their opening by 2 days, and they'll be opening on April 1st because they had 2 break-ins and a bunch of stuff was stolen and vandalized, and they're working with the RCMP to investigate. So it's really unfortunate and really disappointing to hear an elementary school getting broken in and vandalized. Is 2 days in a row is very disappointing. And I think that's everything. I've probably forgotten some things, but oh, one other thing. I got a whole bunch of emails in relation to the subdivision that we approved in 2020 up behind Centennial. Then some folks were going like, hey, why is there essentially a road behind my house? I had to explain that, well, when the regional district approved the subdivision, we insisted on making sure that we had essentially that, access for emergency vehicles. So that's why they put the driveway right along their back fence. We got folks apparently speeding in front, contractors going around and then speeding along the back. So they've got traffic on both sides of their properties. And unfortunately, that's what happens when you make a decision and then 6 years later, the impacts are then felt by the community. That's it for me.
Okay, thanks very much. Sounds like you had a pretty busy month. Yeah, but it's unfortunate about Assumption School break-ins. Terrible when that kind of thing happens. Director McCormick.
Hi, can you hear me? I'll take that as a yes. Yes. I hope you can hear me. Anyway, on let's see, on the 9th of March, I attended the Texada Island Community Society, and the big conversation there was planning the swap meet, which is coming up next month. Twice a month, the Texada Seniors Council offers a community lunch, and I was at the one on the 13th. I'll have to miss the one this week because of my cold. But they do a great lunch for $10, soup, your big choice of sandwiches with lots of vegetables and dessert. So I want to really kind of applaud our seniors council for providing those lunches, because they made a big difference to a lot of people in the community. It's a social time, but it's also a very affordable meal, and a lot of people end up taking doggy bags home. So that they're doing a great job. On the 17th and 18th, the social planning and sub-regional recreation service reviews. I won't duplicate what others have said, except to add my thanks to Director Fall for facilitating those sessions, which he makes it look so easy, and I know it's not. So I just wanted to say thank you to him for doing that. On the 19th, the Texada Rec Commission met, and they've passed a motion calling on the board to upgrade the cell and internet services at our community hall. The Texada Community Hall, you'll recall, is a designated emergency reception center, a response center, in the event that there is an evacuation or a call or some such thing. There's no cell phone service there. You can't make a phone call in that building, and nor can you send an email because there's no internet. So its effectiveness as a reception center is really limited by those two things. So hopefully we will be able to take some action regarding that building so that it has the services to match the needs that are being or the functions that are being made of it. On the 22nd, I attended the Health Services Society annual general meeting. And, in a community that has had a full-time doctor for 30 plus years, it's really been an adjustment to live without one. It's been over a year, and between locums and nurse practitioners and virtual doctors, we're getting by. But the Health Services Society is adding a housing component to their recruitment of a doctor, and hopefully that will bring a bit more success than what we've had so far. On the 23rd, I'm almost done. On the 23rd, which was Monday, Cathat Tourism met, and they're getting lots of inquiries this year, so they expect a very busy summer. The lighted sign for the office is being worked on, as our preliminary designs were presented, being worked on for the logo, and they're very striking. So you will, I hope, be as delighted as I have been when they decide to reveal what their choices are. They did send a letter, by the way, regarding the retention of the dock at Saltry Bay, saying that it is important to the tourism industry to keep that dock open. So they were very kind and sending that letter. On the 25th, I guess that was today, this morning, the Heritage Commission met, had a long discussion about heritage designation, registration, recognition, all the various different variables that are out there. So that was a bit of a learning curve that everyone is going through on that. And then tomorrow, the Airport Advisory Committee will meet, where the extension or renewal of the YGB Airport Manager's contract is up for discussion. So that will be considered tomorrow. And Chair, that is my report.
Thanks very much. I think your voice has gotten better as the day has gone on.
Yeah,
A
thanks.
little better, or?
Yeah, I feel okay. I just sound weird. And so people think I'm full of germs because I sound weird. I probably am full of germs.
Sounds
Anyway,
good.
I'm feeling okay.
Sure. Good.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. So I had well, I wouldn't say a quiet time there. It was kind of intense, but not a lot of meetings. So on March the 4th, I had a meeting with the CEO of City West, a follow-up to the public meeting that I've reported on last month. And they really heard some of the concerns from the community. They'd proposed a partial coverage of the island as their project they're trying to get funded, because that would avoid having to produce electricity on the island. But it wasn't because they wanted that. They had understood that mistakenly that the island didn't want electricity, and it was really the original plan that had some problems. So they're rethinking the proposal, working with the province, and they want to come forward with a plan to provide last mile internet to the entire island. So if it's going to happen, it would be for the whole island, which would get a lot more support from the community. There are a lot of people basically make their support for it contingent on everyone and not leaving anyone behind. On March 10th and 11th, I held 2 town halls, one in person and one online. There were about 10 people in the in-person one and 25 online, and it was really interesting to see the different dynamics. Even though the in-person one only had 10 people, there was way more engagement. We held it at the community hall. I had a projector and I showed them the details of the budget. So, I force feed them to see here's the not all details, but here's the services that are regional district, and here's the numbers, some tables from the report, just images from the financial plan, and a lot of engagement, people wanting to dive into what, can I see the budget for the wharf and for the marine ramp, I should say, and so on. And the 25 online, the people were a little less animated, but it was also very positive. In addition to the budget, I actually brought up 4 other items. One is I showed them the resolution that we sent to AVICC, and there's very strong support for that. They're very happy. The public's very happy of that. I've reported to the community before on that in my monthly reports. I talked about the parking lot. So those of you that remember, there's actually, we have a license of occupation on this little segment of road near the Legion lot. We call it the Legion lot. It's owned by the regional district. It's where the arts center is on Lasqueti. And we have a license of occupation to manage it for parking. And some number of years ago, probably 7 or 8 years ago, we redid it got reworked, we meaning the regional district, reworked it, reduced the amount of parking on it, put in better ditching and drainage. And so it's, since that time, which it was covered in derelict cars, but before that, it was just, had 50 derelict cars on it or something. It was ridiculous. So now it can hold about 15 or 20 cars, I think half 20 cars or something. And it empties out. It hasn't had any derelicts on it for 6-7 years, which is great. And that's partly because people don't really know what the use is. Now, the actual functional use is short-term parking for use during the summer market that happens, for the arts center, for the feed store, and not for long-term parking. And that's something the public seems to really support, is not using tax dollars to maintain a facility to allow people to park their car for 6 months at a time. If they want to park that long, take it away. And so I brought that up. Earlier in my term, I'd said I'd maybe do a survey on whether people want something else to that. And I suggested that I shouldn't go any further with this. We should just leave it the way it is. It works fine. The parking lot empties out, it doesn't collect cars. People can use it, of course, for parking for the ferry. Usually there's parking closer, but that there's no need for signs, no need for extra work, no need for extra rules, and the thumbs up at both town halls. So that's more or less the answer on that, and I'll communicate that a bit more with our staff. I also asked whether or not, whether or not we should inquire into potential QRD involvement in a last mile fiber optic internet on Lasqueti with City West if that happens. So I didn't, that was a fairly hot topic, so I didn't want to dive down into the details. So I cast it as, first of all, if the internet happens. It wasn't about whether or not we want the internet. It's if the internet project happens, do the public want me to find out? Not do we want QRD involvement? Do you want me to find out about whether the QRD should be involved, what it would mean? And the answer was yes, find out, and then talk to us. So that's what I'll be trying to do over the next while. And then the last one was the church property. I reported on the past. The Anglican church came over. They deconsecrated the church. It was given to them by a landowner who's actually still on the island. His family gave it to them. And actually another landowner who's no longer here, but his family's still on Lasqueti, built the church in the 50s. They the Archdiocese Anglican Church deconsecrated it and is offering it to the community. So one of the options is they want to give it to the community, but there has to be a recipient. And the one option is the QRD. So I asked the public, do you want me to look into the option for QRD involvement, what that might mean, and maybe with administration by a society, kind of like all across the road. Those who've been to Lasqueti may remember the Art Center. It's our lot. We have a license of occupation, a lease with the Lasqueti Arts Council. They lease it. It gets used for the market. It seems like a win-win. There's no tax dollars involved. So it's a benefit there. So that's what the thumbs up to get information. And again, it was go ahead and get information, and then we'll maybe if we can, I'll organize a meeting at the church with community members. We can walk around on it. There's parking on it. It could be self-funded, so they could figure out how that is. So expect more on that. I'll be inquiring with our CAO and other staff, or their CAO, I guess, about that. And if there's something, if and when it can come forward, if it seems feasible, then it's, there's sort of a bunch of moving pieces. Talking to the church, see what they're open to. They want, one of their only stipulations is they want there to be some aspect of reconciliation. When they're divesting these properties, they want some aspect of First Nations reconciliation to be part of the future use. So that has to be part, doesn't have to be the only use, but has to be the use. So I'll leave it there. Last week, I'll just finish up with talking about the service review. So there's been a couple of reports on that. I think the two service reviews were quite successful. I would disagree a little bit with Director Gisborne's statement that we didn't come to an agreement. I would say we actually did come to an agreement with the social planning. We came to an agreement that some of the participants may want to withdraw and initiate that process, and some of them may want to keep it for now, and that there's recommendations to that effect. And I think that's an agreement to resolve some conflict. So I think that is an agreement to allow different participants to do what they think is best for their community. And so there's some recommendations coming forward. The Sub-Regional Recreation Service, I haven't yet written up the reports. There were a couple recommendations, again, passed unanimously. So I think it was quite successful. I have to still write that up and pass that on to our staff. And then the main one is the recommendation to form a negotiating group consisting of the directors for areas A, B, and C, and working out a terms of reference. So I think, once staff have that, we can expect that to come on an agenda. I think maybe one of us has to I'll find out whether we need to do a notice of motion to get that happening, and then that process will start kicking into gear, and that group will be formed, or at least will be considered to be formed by the board. It'll be in the board's the committee of the whole and the board's purview at that point. And with that, I'll leave it there.
Great, thanks very much. That's interesting. I'm curious as to what some of the thoughts were behind potential uses for the church over on CD. But we'll see what happens with that. Director Southcott.
Thank you, Chair. Looking over my schedule for the past month, I realized mostly what I've done is meet with, aside from all the meetings, participate in together and ratepayers and various other community groups. I spend a lot of time on the phone, by email, and text, and meeting people over coffee, etc. And a lot about, I spent 45 minutes with a guy talking about the not so much heritage conservation, but the Musqueam situation. And a lot of what is characterized in these conversations is clearing up lack of information and misinformation. I really don't feel that what I'm running into for the most part is disinformation, but it's pretty hard to tell the difference sometimes. There has been, I'll mention one event that I did attend. It was the Cadet Climate Alliance AGM on the 21st, on Saturday, I think, up in the Cran Hall. They had presentations by two activists. And the one that really impressed me was a young woman who was a researcher, basically, a couple of degrees, and had looked at fire, the responses of communities to fires, starting with Fort McMurray, where Facebook, as an example, was unanimously used to maintain solidarity and communication within the community. And there was across the board understanding and agreement that an evacuation was required. And we all know how successful that was. It was quite phenomenal. She gave 2 or 3 more examples and ended up with the one which I think was Salmon Arm, where there was actually a standoff involving police officers and a withdrawal of BC wildfire staff, which is kind of the opposite end of, the way I see it anyway, of community and professional and government-based cooperation, like a real lack. What she did discover in her research was that there was a pretty significant amount of misinformation resulting from that because of lack of understanding of what was really going on with the people on the ground. So her research showed me that it is direct connection with people and finding out where they're coming from. And these are people who are foresters and land-based people who, for the reasons that they did, refused to leave their places, etc. To spare us the details, the bottom line is that communication, especially one-on-one communication, for us, I think, is becoming an increasingly vital function of what we can provide for our communities. And I know we are doing a lot of that, those of us around this table, but this is how people will get reliable connection to something they can trust, which is a central factor here. The overwhelm of information has been easy to go awry, especially considering what's the word? How connections are like in social media, where you're clicked onto, you'll see stuff coming up that relates to your interests, basically. Algorithms are cued to not necessarily foster connections and good information. So I mention that because this was, this talk that she gave there was no blame involved. There was just a conclusion that the direct hands-on communication and connection between us is becoming more and more important as the greater sea around us is less and less reliable because we can't. So I think that's vital for us. And I spent 45 minutes yesterday helping this guy. And when we got off the phone, I think he was significantly, just as an example, significantly relieved that it's in working progress. So I'm very grateful to hear so much about the LGLA and the electoral area representatives forum, which obviously I did not attend because I really feel that this was focused on in a pretty significant way there as well. Maybe not exactly in the same, in this direction, but I just see this as something vital for us. And also, I've been getting back into ham radio a little bit. Speaking of, I ended up with it works when everything else shuts down. And it works when you're in a dead zone with cell phones, etc. So Yeah, it goes right back to when I was a teenager. It's never completely left. Somebody gave me a radio that's going to go on my boat, and you never know. There's an antenna right out here. Who knows? We'll end up using it yet. That's for me. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now, don't directors reports, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything they want to pull from it? If not, can I get somebody to move it?
Moved.
Director Gisborne, seconded. Director Elliott, thank you. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Down to reports, 13.1, rescinding policy 4.16, workplace discrimination, bullying, harassment. Sounds like it's just a bit of housekeeping here. We have a recommendation. Thank you, Director Gisborne. Second, I think I saw Director Fall. Is that right? Thank you. Any discussion? Director Elliott?
Just a question. When we enact a new policy, doesn't it automatically rescind old stuff or?
CEO, or sorry. One more point.
Thank you. It wasn't quite clear there that it had rescinded the former policy, so this is just a housekeeping step.
Seeing no other hands, I'll call the question. All in favor? Unanimous. Passes. Thank you. Bylaws. Would somebody like to read that one? Director Gisborne?
Yeah, here we go. I move that the board give first and second reading of Regional Animal Shelter Service Establishment Bylaw number 385.2, 2026.
Second amendment bylaw, but yeah. Second by Director Lennox. Any discussion? This is for A, B, C, D, and the city. All in favor? Carries unanimously.
I'll move that the board give third reading of Regional Animal Shelter Service Establishment Amendment Bylaw number 385.2, 2026.
Second, Director Lennox. Any discussion? None. All in favor?
I move the board adopt Regional Animal Shelter Service Establishment Amendment Bylaw number 385.2, 2026.
Second, Director Lennox. Any discussion? Director Gisborne?
Yeah, the bylaw makes sense. The one question I have is, so this is an amendment bylaw, and I'm just wondering, is there a way I could find the original bylaw? I tried searching and I couldn't find it. Just out of curiosity, because I've been reading all these service establishment bylaws, and no, I'm not planning to trigger a service review on that service.
Officer?
We have all bylaws.
Okay, I'm sure it's somewhere. I just couldn't find it. Okay, other than that,
not online, but through an information request, yeah.
I don't want it to use up a bunch of staff time. But yeah, no, this makes sense because for anyone online that's watching, this essentially allows us to increase the tax requisition as, of course, inflation has been going up, and we have an agreement with the SPCA to be increasing the contribution based on the BC SPCI. And we need to actually increase the requisition amount in order to meet those obligations and to continue to fund the SPCA for the Regional Animal Shelter Service. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other hands, I'll call the question. All in favor? And unanimous. Passes. 14.2, would somebody like to read that one?
Sure. I move that the board give first and second reading of the 2026 to 2030 financial plan bylaw number 608, 2026.
Seconded by Director Gisborne. Any discussion? Director Fall and then Director Elliott.
Very briefly, I just want to thank everyone, staff and the directors, for getting this to where it was. We had a lot of healthy discussions, and it's, as always, lots of moving pieces, and it's really nice to reach this point where we're at the end point. I do have one question, if I might, through the chair, for our manager of financial services, and it's based on a question I got from a member of the public. Will there be updates? There was a question about what changed since draft 3, and I guess the question is, will there be updates of that kind of information, or is it better to say to them, direct them to look at draft 3 and then to the changes that we adopted, the motions that we adopted at the last board meeting? Is that the best approach for them to understand what took us from draft 3 to Schedule A?
Thank you, Chair. I didn't plan to do a report on what had changed. So I just incorporated those changes into the final draft, and we will present a final draft in the on the website. We'll have a full plan on the website, and that will show all of the details, that you received during all of the drafts, but the final document will be posted on the website. And we'll also have a media release going out after the board adopts the bylaw.
Okay, that's perfect. And I certainly do not want to add any extra work to our staff. Our staff need a holiday after this. But if there's an update, I can tell that person there will be an update on the website, and anyone else, I'll report that to the public to keep their eye out for those who want those kinds of details. Thanks.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Chair. So I think that the budget, in particular, when it comes to the recreational contribution to whatever we're calling that service, has unfairly capped the budgeting mandate for that service through the budget, and it's not fair to city taxpayers that has happened, and I'm probably going to go against this file.
Okay. Any other comments? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? One opposed, Dr. Elliott. Moving on.
I move that the board give third and final reading of 2026 to 20.
Third reading.
Oh, sorry, third reading, sorry. Yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself. Of 2026 to 30 financial plan, 608, 2026.
Seconded by Dr. Southcott. Any discussion? Dr. Gisborne?
Yeah, this financial plan covers a whole list of the services that we provide at the regional district. Everything from fire department services to Myrtle Pond water system, and including the sub-regional recreation contribution service. Just want to say, of all those things, I think this is as close as we've been able to kind of get by forming consensus. Are these the numbers that I would have chosen? If I was king, probably not, but I'm not king. That's why we have committees and boards, and we would make collective decisions. And I think even though there were some things that I wanted to go one way and the board wanted to go another, at the end of the day, we were actually able to make a collective decision. And I think that this financial plan is as close as we were able to come to collectively to move forward. And as for the sub-regional recreation service, the last 2 years, we've had no agreement with the city. Prior to that, the contribution was capped at $178,000 per year for 5 years straight. So I think $250,000 is significantly higher than $178,000. And it looks like that the way that we've been voting on that service this year is correct, where it's areas A, B, and C unweighted, whereas the last 2 years it was all directors weighted. And that was actually one of the complaints that was directed to the minister that triggered the service review. So it looks like we're back to it's up to areas A, B, and C. And when it comes to what is seen as fair and what each side is getting, I think that will come up with the negotiation between the municipality and the electoral areas.
Okay, any other comments? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Unopposed?
Okay, now the board adopt 2026 to 2030 financial plan bylaw number 608, 2026.
Seconded by Dr. Southcott. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Any opposed? Unopposed. Carries. Well done. New business 15.1 social planning service review group recommendations. Recommendation here.
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you, Director Fall, seconded by Director Lennox. Any discussion? Director Fall?
I'll just briefly speak on this. I mean, Area E as a facilitator and participant, so it's a little bit challenging. So I'll speak as a participant. The Area E rationale for not wanting to explore withdrawal right now is that I feel there's still maybe some potential options, and yet, two of the directors felt that, they want to at least explore that. They expressed an interest, but I think the first point that we came to agree on at the service review meeting was to ask for information on that process. I think that will help clarify exactly how it works out. And I think if I recall that recommendation was adopted unanimously at the service review group, and so this would basically provide information on that option of withdrawal for one or more. And the reason I say it that way is because if all participants wanted to withdraw, that would be a different process, because that would be withdrawal and termination. If one or more but not all want to withdraw, or at least want to explore that would leave the service existing. So some would leave maybe, and some would stay. And so that we'll find that out according to the information on this.
You, Director Gisborne?
Thank you, Chair. One of the reasons why I used the language that the service review dispute was unsuccessful is that comes up to what is kind of spelled out in the legislation to trigger the second portion of like service disputes. And I'm not saying that like, okay, you know, we failed to identify the problems. We were actually able to identify the problems. The challenge was we were not able to come to an agreement on what actually to do with the service. So we heard that there were 2 electoral areas that desired to pull out of the service, that, you know, we're not really interested in participating in the service anymore. And that's not killing the service. Of course, if everyone says they want to pull out, then it kills the service. If, say, Area B says we would like to pull out, and the other directors that are participants say we are okay with that, the service establishment bylaw can be amended as long as all parties are comfortable with that. As long as they all agree to it, they consent to it, they, you know, sign off, and then it goes to the board, and then it goes off to the ministry, and the service establishment bylaw is amended to remove the electoral areas that no longer wish to participate. The reason why I say we weren't able to come to an agreement was I asked very clearly at the service review meeting, will the other participants allow Area B, and I believe it was also Area A that was interested, will they allow us to withdraw? And the answer I received was, we are not interested in changing the service establishment bylaw. So that's where we kind of came to a bit of a challenge. You know, some directors want to leave, some directors want to stay. If they want to stay, that's fine. But what they're saying is, we want to stay and we don't want to let you go. We want you to keep paying into the service. And that's why, as I've said, I'm still interested in pulling out of the service, because the concerns that I raised in the service review were not really solved, in the sense that, you know, the service is kind of a blank check, kind of do anything. And I don't like services like that. I really like how regional districts are structured. Kind of helps with my autism, where it's like, you know, you keep your peas and carrots separate. You know, fire department sits over in one corner and you keep them apart. So when it comes to the process to pull out of the service, you know, the easy way is that the directors come to an agreement.
Director Gisborne, let's remember we're talking about a particular motion here. So try to bring things back to the motion, please. Thank you.
And the motion is how to withdraw from the service.
Well, that's concurring with the recommendation.
Yeah, and it's asking for information from staff. Now, I guess the question is, will the information from staff be sent out via email? Will it be a report? What's the timeline for getting this back? And I guess the other question is, if I send off the request for formal service withdrawal under 367 of the Local Government Act, that starts the process, in which case do we even need a motion? Then the process has been triggered. The question through the chair, I guess.
Anybody have an answer for that? CAO?
I think it's kind of a rhetorical question.
Yeah, I guess if I send it off, then we have the answer. And I guess that's where my concern is I don't want the social planning service to cost any more than it already has. I'm very happy that we were able to do these service reviews for a very low cost. But if this is just going to be another delaying tactic, once you actually initiate that service withdrawal process, there's, you know, a whole bunch of ways to do arbitration, but if you're not able to resolve those issues, it goes to getting approval from the electors, where it either goes to referendum or alternate approval process. And I am cognizant of the upcoming election, and if we are going to take this to referendum, then I would prefer to do this at the same time as a general election to save costs. I don't like doing standalone referendums. That's kind of where concern is how long will this motion take? And if it takes too long, then I'll just send the letter off to the minister.
Don't know if staff is prepared at this time to give any sort of schedule. We haven't even given it marching orders yet, so. This is the conclusion that we came to at the service review meeting. It was accepted by the group. I think it's the right path to go down. It's always good to have more information when decisions like this are being made. I can't imagine it's gonna be a long-term response from staff to understand what the repercussions or the information required to do that. I'm supporting the recommendation. Director Lennox, do you have?
Yeah,
comments?
thanks, Chair. As one of the potential areas that does wish to withdraw, and Area A pays a significant portion of the minor costs that we're paying now and continue to pay. I voted all of these recommendations, and I think that I don't anticipate it being super onerous. I know Director Gisborne does his homework, and there's a process that I could launch and follow that as well. But I prefer to follow these recommendations for the points that are stated in them. And I'm still committed to withdrawal at this point, but I'd like to see all the details and so I can make an informed decision. Thanks.
Good, thank you. Seeing no other hands, I'll call a question. All in favor? Any opposed? Unopposed, Director Gisborne. Second motion, somebody like to move that? Director Lennox, thank you. Seconded by Director Southcott. Any comments? Director Fall?
Thank you, Chair. And this was primarily discussed in relation to at the service review meetings in relation to those participants that would stay. So if we imagine some but not all participants remain in the service, those participants really felt there may be options for the social planning service. If there really is no use of the social planning service, if it's really not needed, then I think all participants expressed a willingness to consider withdrawal from it. It's really just whether we do it now or not. So some participants obviously want to consider withdrawing now. The other remaining ones stated a preference for at least keeping it for now and then scheduling an informal review. So that basically sets a bit of a clock. Again, from Area E's point of view, I would like to see if there's an option for that. I think we all want to see if there's a possible use of that service, then keeping it there for 2 more years and at a cost of around $1,500 a year isn't a major cost factor. But if it really isn't useful and it doesn't have a purpose, well then there may be a time when it goes away or a use is found for it, and then that would continue and that would give it breathe life into it and it would continue to serve that purpose. So I support this recommendation myself.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed.
Yeah, I'd raised my hand because I wanted to speak.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. Are you opposed or?
Well, I'd like to explain why.
Well,
Is it okay?
okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. We did a service review, an informal one, I believe, back in 2023. Good information. In the end, we kind of stripped whatever was left of the social planning service down to the base $1,500 a year. Still hasn't really had anything done with the service, and now we're looking at potential service withdrawal. I'm kind of torn between whether I vote in favor or vote against this because I'm planning to pull out of the service, and if the remaining participants want to do an informal review in 2 years, they can. And I guess maybe one of the reasons why I'm thinking of voting against this is there's an election this October, and maybe the new board says, hey, we've got some great plans to do with the social planning service and they want to do something, in which case we're kind of tying their hands to say, well, in 2 years, you guys are going to do an informal review, and they might go, what are we reviewing? Like maybe it's a completely new board, and I don't really like tying the hands of the future board. Whereas an informal review is something that you can actually put in the service establishment bylaw. And I think that's one of the things that had come up during the service review is actually having that cyclical review. And that was more discussed in the threat complex one, but I'm not a huge fan of tying the future board's hands. But also at the same time, I don't really plan to be participating in that service in 2 years. So kind of opposed to this motion,
Okay, well,
unless it gets added to bylaw.
I think I've already said anybody in favor, so I'm just gonna do the any opposed. Okay, Director Dinsmore, simple. Motion carries. Question period.
Hello, Chair. Galinsky from the Peak here. I just need to grab my notes.
Sure. Caught you off guard.
Yeah.
You did indeed, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
With regard to item 14.2, which was the 2026 to 2030 financial plan, the requisition property tax value in Schedule A, the first line, is going up significantly from 2027 to 2030, like about $1 million a year. And I'm wondering what the reason would be for this projection.
Ms. Greenan?
Thank you, Chair. So the reason for the projection is that the requisition was quite low this year, and we had brought forward the prior year surplus, and we had quite a significant decrease in the requisition for the waste management service. So we don't expect to have that same decrease in 2027. And so that would mean because it will have to go back up to the level that it, closer to the level that it was in 2025.
That makes sense. Chair, I thank the manager for her explanation. That helps me out greatly. That was the end of my questions.
Well done. Okay, great. We are going to an in-camera session. Would somebody like to move that?
Move.
Director Dinsmore, Lennox, any discussion? None, all in favor? All right, going in camera.
Guys can have us.
Recording in progress.
Okay, the board would like to rise and report that the board is inviting representatives from the city of Powell River to a negotiating meeting regarding the sub-regional recreation contribution agreement. With that, we have reached the end of our agenda. We are adjourned. Thank you for joining us. Have a nice night, folks.